It was just another Saturday at the Oak Ridge Mall, a sprawling labyrinth of storefronts and food courts that always seemed to be packed regardless of the season. I hadn't planned on going shopping that day, but my sister's wedding was coming up in 2 weeks, and I still hadn't found anything appropriate to wear. My name is Ethan, and fashion has never been my strong suit. I'm more comfortable in jeans and a t-shirt, preferably something with a Star Wars reference that only true fans would understand. At 28, I work as a software developer for a small tech company, which means I rarely need to dress formally. My wardrobe consists mainly of casual clothes, with exactly one suit that I bought 5 years ago for job interviews. The mall was bustling with weekend shoppers, families with strollers navigating through crowds, teenagers hanging out by the fountain, and couples walking hand in hand, shopping bags swinging between them. The air was filled with a mixture of perfumes, the buttery smell of pretzels, and the faint scent of cleaning products. Music played softly in the background, barely audible over the constant hum of conversations and footsteps echoing off the high ceilings. I wandered aimlessly for a while, feeling increasingly overwhelmed by the number of stores and options. My sister had specifically requested that all the men in the family wear navy suits with interesting ties, whatever that meant. I had the suit part covered, but the tie was proving to be a challenge. After walking past several stores that seemed too intimidating or expensive, I finally spotted a place called Not Your Average Tie, the kind of pun my dad would appreciate. The store was smaller than the surrounding retail giants, but had an inviting warmth to it. The walls were lined with ties of every color and pattern imaginable, from conservative stripes to whimsical designs featuring everything from dinosaurs to mathematical equations. As I stepped into the store, I was immediately struck by how different it felt from the rest of the mall. The lighting was softer, more intentional, highlighting the vibrant colors of the merchandise. Classical music played quietly, creating a sophisticated atmosphere that made me feel both out of place and intrigued. This wasn't just about buying a tie. It was about discovering a part of myself I hadn't explored before, a version of me that could be polished, put together, maybe even confident in formal wear. I had just picked up a dark blue tie with tiny silver stars when I heard a voice behind me. "That one's nice, but it's playing it safe, don't you think?" I turned around, and that's when I saw him. He was about my height, with warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His dark hair was styled in a way that looked effortless, but probably took some time to perfect. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms that suggested he spent some time at the gym. A name tag pinned to his shirt read Alex. My first instinct was to put the tie back and leave the store. I've never been good at these interactions, the ones where a salesperson approaches and I feel obligated to buy something or risk seeming rude. But there was something about Alex that made me pause. Maybe it was the genuine interest in his expression or the fact that he wasn't pushing a sale right away. Whatever it was, I found myself responding instead of retreating. Safe is kind of my specialty, I admitted, attempting a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. I'm not really sure what constitutes an interesting tie. I explained my sister's wedding requirements, feeling increasingly self-conscious about my lack of fashion knowledge. Alex listened attentively, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, he didn't immediately launch into a sales pitch as I had expected. Instead, he asked, "What do you do for work? What are your interests?" The questions caught me off guard. I wasn't used to salespeople taking a personal interest, especially not attractive ones with perfect hair and a smile that made my stomach do a little flip. "I'm a software developer," I said, then added after a pause. "I like sci-fi, video games, hiking when I can find the time." I felt like I was filling out a dating profile, which was ridiculous because this was just a transaction, not a date. Alex's eyes lit up. "Perfect. We can work with that." He moved around the store with confidence, pulling ties from different displays. A tie isn't just an accessory. It's a conversation starter, a glimpse into your personality. The way he spoke about ties, with genuine enthusiasm and knowledge, was oddly captivating. I found myself following him around the store, listening as he explained the differences between silk, wool, and polyester ties, the significance of different patterns, and how the width of a tie should complement one's build. For your sister's wedding, you want something that shows respect for the occasion but still feels like you, Alex said, laying out 5 ties on a small table in the center of the store. Each one was navy blue with different patterns. one with subtle geometric shapes, another with tiny planets and stars, a third with a pattern that looked like circuit boards, and two others with more traditional designs. I stared at the options, feeling a familiar indecision creeping in. They all looked good, but how was I supposed to know which one was right? Alex must have sensed my hesitation because he picked up the tie with the circuit board pattern. "This one speaks to your profession without being too literal," he said, holding it up against my chest. "The navy background keeps it formal enough for a wedding, but the pattern makes it unique." His fingers brushed against my shirt as he positioned the tie, and I felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with the circuit board design. Our eyes met briefly, and I could have sworn I saw a flicker of something. Interest, perhaps? Before he looked away, focusing back on the tie. "What do you think?" he asked, stepping back to assess the look. I turned to look in a nearby mirror. The tie did look good, sophisticated yet subtly geeky. "I like it," I said, surprised by my own decisiveness. "It's perfect, actually." Alex smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Great choice. Do you know how to tie it properly? A lot of guys default to the basic four-in-hand knot, but for a wedding, you might want something more distinctive." I hesitated, embarrassed to admit that I usually relied on clip-on ties or pre-tied options. "I could use some help with that," I confessed. "No problem," Alex said, his voice warm and free of judgment. "Let me show you a Windsor knot. It's classic, symmetrical, and perfect for formal occasions." He took the tie from me and draped it around his own neck, demonstrating the steps slowly so I could follow. His fingers moved with practiced ease, looping and folding the fabric until a perfect knot formed at his throat. "Now you try," he said, undoing his work and handing the tie back to me. I fumbled with it, trying to replicate what he had shown me, but my fingers felt clumsy and uncooperative. After a few failed attempts, I let out a frustrated sigh. Alex chuckled, but it wasn't mocking. "It takes practice," he said. "Here, let me help you." Before I could respond, he was standing behind me, his arms reaching around to guide my hands through the motions. I could feel the warmth of his chest against my back, smell the subtle scent of his cologne, something woody and sophisticated that made me think of autumn evenings. "Loop it like this," he said, his voice close to my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. His hands guided mine, creating the perfect folds and loops. "Now pull it through here, and then tighten it gently." As he said this, he pulled the tie forward, bringing me slightly closer to him in the process. The moment felt intimate, charged with an energy I hadn't expected to find in a tie store on a Saturday afternoon. When the knot was complete, Alex stepped back, but his eyes remained on mine in the mirror. "Perfect," he said softly, and I wasn't sure if he was referring to the tie or something else entirely. I cleared my throat, trying to regain my composure. "Thank you," I managed to say, adjusting the tie slightly. "It looks great." And it did. The knot was symmetrical and substantial, making me look more put together than I had ever looked in my life. "The right tie can transform not just how you look, but how you feel," Alex said, straightening the tie one last time. "Confidence is the best accessory anyone can wear." As I stood there, wearing a perfectly knotted tie selected by a handsome stranger who had just been close enough for me to count his eyelashes, I felt a surge of something unfamiliar, a mix of confidence and attraction that made my heart race. This wasn't just about finding a tie for my sister's wedding anymore. It was about discovering a version of myself I hadn't known existed. Someone who could feel comfortable in formal wear, someone who could catch the eye of a guy like Alex. "So, is this the one?" Alex asked, breaking the spell of the moment. "Definitely." I nodded, reluctantly removing the tie. As Alex took it to the register, I found myself searching for a way to prolong our interaction. "Do you always take this much time with customers?" I asked, immediately regretting how accusatory it sounded. Alex laughed as he carefully folded the tie into tissue paper. "Only the ones who look completely lost," he teased. "And maybe the ones I find interesting." He glanced up at me with a smile that suggested he might be flirting, or maybe that was just wishful thinking on my part. I paid for the tie, acutely aware of the brief moment when our fingers touched as he handed me the receipt. "Thanks for all your help," I said, taking the small bag containing my purchase. I was dreading this shopping trip, but it turned out to be unexpectedly nice. "That's what I aimed for, unexpected niceness," Alex replied with a grin. Then, in a move that surprised me, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. The store's information, he explained, writing something on the back before handing it to me. And my number, in case you need any more fashion advice, or if you want to grab coffee sometime. I stared at the card, momentarily speechless. Was he asking me out? The thought sent a flutter of excitement through my chest. I'd like that, I finally said, tucking the card carefully into my wallet. I'm Ethan, by the way. Nice to meet you. Ethan, Alex said, his smile widening. I look forward to hearing how the wedding goes and seeing pictures of that tie in action. As I left the store, I felt lighter somehow, as if the encounter had shifted something fundamental in my perception of myself. The mall that had seemed overwhelming just an hour ago now felt full of possibility. I touched the bag containing the tie, thinking about how a simple shopping errand had turned into something much more significant. Over the next week, Alex and I texted regularly. Our conversations flowed easily from fashion advice for the wedding to deeper discussions about our lives, interests, and experiences. He was funny, thoughtful, and refreshingly direct. When I sent him a selfie of me practicing the Windsor knot he had taught me, his response, "Looking good. The tie's not bad either," winking face, made me blush like a teenager. We arranged to meet for coffee the weekend before my sister's wedding. I arrived early, nervously adjusting my shirt, which I had changed 3 times before leaving my apartment, and scanning the cafe for any sign of him. When Alex walked in, dressed in casual clothes rather than his work attire, I felt that same flutter of attraction I had experienced in the tie store. "You clean up nice," he said as he sat down across from me, his eyes taking in my carefully chosen outfit. Jeans and a button-down shirt that I hoped struck the right balance between trying too hard and not trying enough. "I had a good teacher," I replied, surprising myself with the ease of the banter. Something about Alex made me feel comfortable, despite the nervous energy buzzing through me. Our coffee date stretched into lunch, and then a walk through the park nearby. We talked about everything: our families, our jobs, our dreams for the future. Alex told me about his passion for fashion design, how working at the tie store was just a stepping stone toward opening his own boutique someday. I shared my love for coding, the satisfaction of solving complex problems, and my secret desire to develop games that combined storytelling with innovative gameplay. As we walked, our hands brushed against each other several times before Alex finally took mine, intertwining our fingers with a questioning look that I answered by squeezing his hand gently. The simple gesture felt monumental, a declaration of interest, of possibility. "I've never done this before," I admitted as we sat on a bench overlooking a small pond, still holding hands. "Dated a guy, I mean." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I had known I was attracted to men for years, but growing up in a conservative small town had made it easier to ignore that part of myself, to focus on school and then work, to tell myself I was just too busy for relationships rather than confronting the real reason for my hesitation. Alex's expression softened. "Is that something you want to explore?" he asked, his voice gentle and free of pressure. I nodded, feeling both vulnerable and strangely empowered by my honesty. "With you, yes." The day of my sister's wedding arrived, and as I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my tie, the circuit board patterned one that Alex had helped me select, I felt a surge of confidence that was entirely new. The past 2 weeks had been transformative, filled with more coffee dates, long conversations, and increasingly passionate goodnight kisses with Alex. Each interaction had helped me become more comfortable not just with him, but with myself. I had invited Alex to be my +1 at the wedding, a decision that meant coming out to my family in a very public way. The night before, I had called my sister to give her a heads up, nervous about her reaction and worried about taking attention away from her big day. "Ethan, I've suspected you might be gay since you were 15 and had more posters of Orlando Bloom than any straight boy I've ever known," she had said with a laugh. "Bring your tie guy? I can't wait to meet him." Her easy acceptance had brought tears to my eyes, releasing a tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Not everyone might be as understanding. I was particularly worried about my more traditional grandparents, but knowing my sister supported me gave me the courage I needed. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, and Alex fit seamlessly into the celebration, charming my family with his warmth and humor. When it came time for dancing at the reception, he pulled me onto the floor despite my protests about my lack of rhythm. "Just follow my lead," he said, echoing the words he had used when teaching me to tie the Windsor knot. His hand rested lightly on my waist as we swayed to the music, surrounded by other couples, yet somehow in a world of our own. "Thank you," I said, looking into his eyes. "For what?" "My exceptional dancing skills," he teased. I smiled, adjusting my tie, our tie, as I had come to think of it. "For helping me pick this tie? For looping it and pulling me forward, literally and figuratively. For being patient with me as I figure all this out." Alex's expression softened. "You're doing the hard part," he said. "Being true to yourself takes courage. I'm just lucky enough to be here for the journey." As the music continued and we moved together on the dance floor, I reflected on how a chance encounter in a tie store had led to this moment of profound personal change. The tie around my neck was more than just a fashion accessory. It was a symbol of transformation, of stepping into a more authentic version of myself. In the weeks and months that followed, Alex and I continued to grow closer. There were challenges, of course, moments of doubt, difficult conversations with some family members, the occasional clash of personalities that comes with any relationship. But through it all, the foundation we had built remained strong. 6 months after we met, Alex invited me to the grand opening of his first pop-up shop in a trendy district downtown. He had left his job at the mall to pursue his dream, starting small, but with big ambitions. The shop featured his own designs, ties, bow ties, and pocket squares in innovative patterns and textures. As I watched him interact with customers, explaining the inspiration behind each piece with the same passion he had shown me that first day, I felt a surge of pride and affection. In the center of the shop, displayed prominently, was a collection of ties with circuit board patterns, the Ethan collection, according to the small placard. "You inspired these," Alex told me later, when the last customer had left and we were alone in the shop. Someone who embraces both sides of himself, the logical and the creative, the traditional and the unique. I picked up one of the ties, running my fingers over the intricate pattern. "They're beautiful," I said, genuinely impressed by his talent. "Though I might be biased." Alex laughed, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Extremely biased," he agreed, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "But I'll take the compliment anyway." As we stood there, surrounded by the physical manifestation of Alex's dreams, I thought about how far we had both come since that day in the mall. Alex had taken a leap of faith with his career, and I had done the same with my heart. Both decisions had led us to a place of greater authenticity and joy. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if I hadn't walked into your store that day?" I asked, leaning into his embrace. "Sometimes," Alex admitted. "But I like to think we would have found each other somehow. Some connections are just meant to happen." I wasn't sure if I believed in fate or destiny, but standing there with Alex, I couldn't help but feel grateful for whatever series of events had led me to that tie store on that particular Saturday. A simple shopping errand had changed the course of my life, leading me not just to a relationship, but to a deeper understanding and acceptance of myself. As Alex locked up the shop and we stepped out into the evening air, hand in hand, I adjusted my tie, one of his designs, of course, and felt that now familiar surge of confidence. The journey hadn't always been easy, and I knew there would be more challenges ahead, but with each step forward, each new experience shared, the path became clearer. What had begun with a tie, looped, knotted, and pulled forward, had become something far more significant. A life lived authentically, with courage and love. And for that, I would be forever grateful. Total _char_count, 18,603.